Hi everybody and welcome to our first video of the year. So this month we are looking at atmosphere, and in this video I'm going to explore some different ways of creating atmosphere in images, particularly kind of using mixed media, what kind of effects we can create that can help images look more atmospheric. Just as a note, it is a beautiful, sunny, freezing cold day here in the UK. I normally turn my heating off when I'm filming so we don't get background noise, but I'm going to keep it on today because otherwise I'm going to be absolutely freezing. So if you hear a kind of a whirring noise in the background, that is the sound of my heating, but hopefully it's not too distracting and I can mostly get rid of it with kind of remove background noise option when I'm editing, but yeah, just wanted to let you know about that. This is going to be a kind of follow along and have a go creating your own effects and textures and things kind of session. So I will give you a moment to grab your sketchbook, grab your materials, grab wet materials, grab dry materials. I think it's really important to make time for a session like this where we just experiment and try different things, and I'm going to show you some tried and tested techniques that I use a lot, but I'm also going to experiment and maybe I will come up with some new stuff here in this session. But yeah, this is just going to be a session for us to experiment and try out lots of different techniques, and maybe we'll end up finding some that we like and then we can add them to our kind of our toolkit of techniques, and then when we're painting something atmospheric we can kind of think, oh yes, I've practiced that technique, that worked great, I'm going to use that. So I think it's really important to make time just to experiment and play and practice and not always be creating finished pieces. So yeah, I think this is going to be fun. So hopefully you've got some materials, like I say, anything, watercolours, gouache, pastels, pencils, get everything. So one thing that always makes images look atmospheric is a kind of a glow, you know, something magical glowing, Christmas lights glowing. I've been drawing lots of those recently, the moon glowing, the stars, anything like that. So I have done some swatches already, just some kind of very dark swatches so that we can show a kind of glow. And these are just painted with watercolours, they're kind of a chromatic grey. So how to create a glowing effect on a dark background. We can use coloured pencils. I'm going to have a go, be doing a light, maybe swirling round. I don't think that's quite got the drama that I want. I'm not sure that's kind of reading. I don't think the white pencil is quite opaque enough. That is a Derwent Pro colour. I'm going to see if this one's any better, but I don't think. Oh, that is a little bit better. If I kind of press a bit harder. But then because I'm having to press harder, I'm not sure it has the softness of a glow, but that is working a bit. So one of my favourite techniques for creating a glow is to use a Neocolor pastel, because it is much more opaque and it's softer. So if you were painting a kind of a glowing light, you could have the intensity of the white more in the middle and then less as you go out towards the edge, like that. So I really like that as an effect. Pan pastels are also brilliant for creating a kind of a glow. I don't actually have a white, which is an oversight. I've got this one, which is sort of stone coloured, so I'll see how that comes out. I'm just going to use my finger. That's creating a really nice, soft glow, like that. Naturally, that really lends itself to creating a sort of glow. And if I wanted it to be more of a warm glow, I've got some yellow here. Which is really nice. And I've got another video coming up which is going to be much more about pan pastels, but I'm going to use them in this one as well. But yeah, that's working really nicely to create a glow, maybe a little bit more of the white, and then you think what you could use that for a sort of glowing moon or maybe a glowing lamp. So maybe if I put in, you know, some little details. And then suddenly that becomes a lamp glowing in the darkness. And I can think about what other details I'd want to add, like maybe that light is kind of hitting the black bits of the black bit, you know, the you know what I mean, the iron of the lamp. So thinking about where the light might be hitting. Maybe I'd make this glow a little bit bigger. And maybe it's a snowy evening. So I love Neocolor pastels for snow. I think with snow, you can draw individual flakes or you can just kind of go random flakes. And I quite like this with just kind of varying the size and the direction so they feel kind of random and giving it a bit of directionality so you get the sense that the wind's blowing it kind of this way. And then that feels like a glowing lamp on a cold winter's evening. And it's really nice actually with the watercolour in the background that's got, it's pulled in different areas and that's giving atmosphere, and we're going to explore that in a minute. And maybe I'd even put in some kind of dark clouds in the background. I don't know, I'm just kind of coming up with ideas now. Maybe this is a umber, little bit of clouds, I don't know, or maybe kind of rooftops would be with the chimneys. That's quite nice. I don't like my cloud. I try and smudge that in a bit. I don't like my cloud, but I think maybe the rooftops are quite nice. So in this tiny little study, we've already created a lot of atmosphere through mixed media and thinking about what different materials we can use and trying different things. So these were kind of, I would say, less successful, but this I really like. And also thinking about other types of light. So Christmas lights I really like using pan pastels, and again using a mixed media approach might work well. So if I'm thinking about maybe there's some lights strung up, maybe I could do the lights kind of in white first and then dust with a brush some colour over. Let's see how that picks up. And got a new one I've got to open. Just thinking about the colours I'm choosing. So I've got an ultramarine blue, but I don't think that's going to really contrast much with the background. But I've got this new turquoise. See how that looks. Maybe if I put a bit of this lighter colour in, help give that one a bit more glow. And then the blue over the top. So just thinking about opacity and kind of layering it. Put my blue on there. The blue's not quite working, but the yellow and the red have. Got this one as well I haven't used yet, which is a kind of a magenta. So let's try that. I think maybe we'll get a pink. Let's see. I put a bit of this white on first to give it a bit of a glow. Then do the magenta. And that's got a nice glow. They feel like glowy Christmas lights. and then just thinking about how I'd put in the string. So I want something black and something quite fine, so I could try a black pencil. Let's see if that's going to work, putting in the little connection bit for the light. Perfect. And obviously that's great for Christmas lights, but it would be great. Look at my hand. I think I'm going to get a lot more messy by the end of this. That would be a great technique for so many things. You know, if you can imagine neon lights, you know, if you want to do a city at night, or maybe a shop or a building that's got neon lights, this would be a brilliant technique actually. Because you could just sort of write on using the white Neocolor first and then dust on your colour over the top, and you'd get a nice kind of neon glow. So that would be really good. I'm just going to have a go doing that, see how that works. So I've got the Neocolor white first, and then what to go for. I feel like the yellow stands out well, but the pink, it feels like a classic kind of neon light type colour. So let's see how that works. Maybe it needs a little bit more of this line. Just putting a bit of that glow in first. Quite like the white glow actually, just being white, but anyway, let's put the pink in and see. Pressing too hard, and then a bit of context. Maybe there's kind of it's on top of a building or something. We've got a glowing neon sign. So another good way of creating a glow or a variation in tone is to use more wet on wet. So this has all been dry materials on wet materials. So I've done a background with watercolours, and then we've put various dry materials on top, but we can use wet on wet effects with watercolours. So I've got my paint palette here, so we could think about how we could kind of prime the page and how we can use wet on wet techniques. So I'm going to have a go. I'll get a fresh sheet of paper. Kind of priming the page, maybe thinking about, you know, I'm going to put a kind of bit of glow there. Let's see if that works. And I've got a candle here, a little candle. Let's try that with some wax. See how that works. It's kind of creating a bit of glow. And then I think that the pan pastels are actually slightly water resistant, so I'm going to try that and put some of that on first and see if that resists it. Okay, brush. So I'm going to paint some swatches over these. I think this will resist the watercolours, but we'll see when it's kind of dried and settled a bit. Let's see. So that was Neocolor. This is wax, which obviously straight away resists the watercolours. And then this one, the pastel, let's see. It's a bit dry. Interesting. We'll see when they're dry how they all look. So good way of creating a kind of wet on wet effect with a glow is to paint your dark swatch and then just drop in some clean water, and then this will take a little while and it'll spread, but hopefully we'll get a kind of a nice glow there. We'll see. And we could do it the other way, so let's go wet paper and then use negative space and paint around. Just kind of playing here, just doing a moon. The other day we had the most beautiful crescent here in England. We could see a crescent moon, and then Venus was kind of just here above it, and it was so beautiful and so bright. So that's definitely giving a very kind of hazy, glowy look. Maybe try again with a sort of a glowy one like this. Let's leave a circle. And put some darker colour on the edges. A bit more water to this. Let's see. And then thinking about different effects we can create, sort of dramatic effects. Atmosphere and weather always seem to be so interlinked, and in books and movies and TV shows are always using the weather to show a kind of a sense of the character's internal feelings, or kind of to add drama. So I think maybe if I do some kind of diagonal lines with this candle, maybe we can get a sort of a rain falling look. Let's have a go. I definitely want to have a go doing some dramatic clouds. Maybe I could do this. Might not work at all. This is all just experiments. Some kind of forked lightning. Don't know. And then some dramatic clouds. And if we're going for rain, could drawing into the wet paint work? Yeah, that works. So I think I prefer that to that. That's maybe a bit heavy. I don't know, but it could be right in the right project. So sometimes it's kind of scraping away the paint and leaving it white, and then sometimes it's kind of creating this indent that the paint's flowing into and creating these darker lines. So that's interesting, that's quite fun. But it's definitely got a kind of a falling rain kind of look, and then maybe I can put some more paint for the clouds. You never know how these are going to look until they're done. This actually I'm liking more now, this kind of dramatic clouds and lightning. We've got this sort of glow here. It's interesting. I think there's too much wet paint on the paper, but just an experiment. More sort of big clouds. And we can have a go painting some dramatic clouds. You know, a storm brewing, dark clouds always feels very atmospheric. So just going wet on wet. What I'm using is mostly black with a little bit of Prussian blue in it. Usually I love mixing up a chromatic grey, but just for kind of speed and simplicity I'm just using kind of a pre-mixed black. Problem with clouds is you don't want them looking too perfect. Does that look like dramatic clouds? And we could think about maybe how we use our brush and what would feel like dramatic clouds, maybe being a bit more random, or putting the lighter colour in afterwards. Does that work? Does this need a spot of lighter? Maybe we could put a moon in like that. Just wash away some of the paint like that, put a kind of a glowing moon in. Just kind of washing this away and reworking it, see what kind of effects we'll get. And another great watercolour effect that we can try is to use salt. So I've just got regular table salt here, and maybe it'll look like rain or snow, we'll see. So I'm just going to paint a swatch. Okay, we'll see how that looks when it dries. The thing I find with doing something like this, creating lots of different swatches and trying lots of techniques, is the more you do it, the more you keep thinking of ideas. So another way, of course, with watercolours to create a glow would be to remove some of the paint afterwards using something like a tissue. So let's do another swatch. Let's maybe put more colour at the bottom. And then see, get that kind of feels a bit like a glowing moon or something, to kind of remove a bit of the colour that way. And then think wet on wet, maybe I'm going to put in some kind of dark clouds. Maybe some trees as well down here. Like that. And thinking about things kind of looking stormy, maybe kind of playing with the pigments a bit, so maybe putting in lots of sort of deep, dark, stormy colours, and then trying to disrupt the pigment a bit by going in with some water. Yeah, you can start to see the texture of the paper coming through there. You kind of feel like that's all kind of mixed everything up a bit, and that's not going to dry smoothly. You're going to get a lot of kind of texture, so that's quite interesting. That's quite a nice effect. I feel like that would be nice for a stormy sky or maybe a starry sky. And then thinking about playing with gouache, I've just sort of played with watercolours so far. I'm going to get my gouache out. And thinking about different textures, so wet gouache and maybe drier gouache could be quite fun. Maybe kind of playing around with some really horrible old brushes could be quite fun. I'm just having a look, seeing what I've got. So it's just mix up some grey. Just make sure it's heavy on the blue. And it's white. Just mixing up some different variations of the grey. But making sure that blue is the kind of dominant colour in all of them to keep it all cool looking. And then just thinking about what effects we could create. Just playing around. I've got this really kind of scrunchy bristle brush. Maybe that would be kind of good for a storm. Maybe when it's really dry, you can get a sense of rain, maybe. Or kind of maybe rain kind of splattering on a windshield, I'm not sure. So it's really good to just experiment like this, because you don't know what's going to work quite well and what's not going to work at all. You don't know unless you try. This is a horrible brush that's covered in glue or something, but actually rain, it should really be going the other direction. But that's quite nice for rain. That's quite nice. Quite like that. And thinking about you know, maybe a kind of a storm at sea or something like that. We'll try getting some different colours together on the brush. A bit more of that, a bit more of that. It needs to be a bit wetter, and then a bit of dark blue on one side. That's quite nice, getting all the different tones in there. That's starting to maybe look like a kind of a rough sea, maybe? I don't know. it's just fun playing around and creating different effects and then seeing what they could be useful for. I think I need a chromatic grey without any white in it, just kind of more of a pure chromatic grey. Maybe kind of clouds on the horizon. Maybe kind of working into it. Maybe this is a terrible idea. No, I quite like that actually. That feels like kind of foreboding clouds on the horizon. I find not getting clouds too perfect is always a bit of a challenge, so that's quite a good way of, while the paint's still wet, using this very scratchy brush and kind of working in. So that's quite nice. And then maybe it's raining, so we could put some pencil lines. I feel like I almost want them to be kind of finer than that. That ruined it, maybe. Let's see. But I think you've got to be not afraid of ruining things, just to kind of try stuff out. Try some big. That's quite nice with the wet gouache, the kind of effects here. Not sure about the shape of the cloud, it looks a bit too kind of cartoony. But there's some nice effects happening there with the sort of wet on wet, which is interesting. It's quite interesting, quite nice. Kind of big storm clouds, and this one's looking really nice actually, where I went back in and kind of agitated the paint by painting it all with a lot of pigment and then going back in again with the just a wet brush and kind of mixed all the pigment up, and then it's kind of resettled, and that's worked nicely. That one's actually worked really nicely, where I've kind of gone back in and kind of agitated the pigment. So I painted that square with quite a lot of pigment on my brush, and then went in with a wet brush, just like lots of clean water on the brush, mixed it all up and let it all settle again. And then, yeah, it's kind of, yeah, it looks like a kind of a stormy sky. Maybe that looks a bit like lightning, or it would be good for starry sky, maybe. But yeah, I'm really liking how these are looking. It's nice to kind of feel like I'm banking techniques that I can use. Like I like this this rain with this really horrible, cheap, gluey craft brush. I'm going to remember that. That one's good. So something else that can really create atmosphere is a strong colour palette. It can completely set the mood, particularly a very warm palette or a very cold palette immediately gives a mood beyond just temperature. A warm palette usually will feel kind of cozy and maybe safe or happy, and then a cold colour palette can show that maybe something is kind of scary or sad, maybe someone feels alone or they're in danger. It can feel a bit eerie if everything's sort of very blue or purple or greeny. So I've got some swatches that I painted here, and can think about painting a scene or drawing a scene on here and using the colour palette. So for this one I was thinking, I haven't planned this really at all, but I was thinking maybe something like a campfire or something. So maybe I'll put in some kind of foreground. And a tree, and that sort of anytime you've got silhouettes like this, that also immediately kind of creates a little bit of mood and drama. We go back over this stem when it's dry. Then maybe a smaller tree kind of in the distance here. And with trees I hold my brush quite upright so I get a nice fine line, but also it feels more natural. This is a size 4, so just helps the lines look kind of a little bit wobbly and organic, which I want, just to help them feel natural. Same with the trees or clouds or anything. What you don't want is them looking too perfect. And then maybe I've got a kind of bonfire is going to be here, and then thinking like, how would I create kind of burning fire? I think maybe I want to have a go using my maybe my Neo colour. Gonna kind of stand out. Maybe also this kind of yellow glow around it with some pan pastels. Maybe that kind of works. I'm not sure about the competition at all or how I've done the crowd, but I quite like how the fire looks. I like that bit. But yeah, this is just an experiment, just having a bit of a play. Maybe some clouds. Maybe the moon. Too much space in this composition here. Definitely going to put in kind of like we're viewing it from maybe kind of in the bushes or something. I've got no idea where this painting is going, by the way. This is, I do not have a reference or a plan, but you know, it's just kind of playing around with some different effects. Maybe I'll put some little people in. and then we're kind of viewing this through some grasses here maybe. This more kind of sticks in fire. There we go. Okay. Not the best picture I've ever painted, but I'm pleased with how the fire looks actually, and I think it feels atmospheric. I could always put a bit more glow on the people actually. Sorry, you'll have to excuse my my coughing. There's going to be a lot of coughing on the background of this month's videos. I had a chest infection over Christmas, so maybe a little bit of glow on the people. Maybe it was better without. Let's go back. There we go. Better without, maybe. Maybe when it's dry, maybe I'll put a tiny little bit of glow on them. But yeah, I think better without too much. Just kind of thinking where the glow would actually be. It's kind of on the floor here, and then maybe a little bit on their legs. But yeah, we've got a kind of warm, glowy kind of scene, and then here I'm thinking something kind of stormy. I want a dark tealy kind of colour. Let's see. Thinking this one maybe kind of, don't know what I'm doing at all, maybe kind of trees, kind of bent over in the rain. And we've got kind of horizon here. We've got some water, maybe using different textures, so maybe we've got like a street light. In a slightly thicker gouache, and then maybe thinking about show that this is wet, maybe I could do that kind of a kind of wet on wet. You sort of see the street lamp there maybe. Some kind of leaves. And maybe some other trees. Thinking about making it kind of maybe lighter in the background with heavy rain. So it feels like they're kind of receding into the background maybe. Some clouds and some puddles. Street light maybe. Got a cat here trying to get home because it's all wet and windy. And then thinking about mixed media, thinking about maybe creating a kind of a street light effect here. Good old white neo colour, and maybe in that reflection in the water. And then thinking about maybe putting in some rain. This is indigo, nice colour. That's quite nice when it kind of catches on the bits of the tree that are wet. Maybe some white pencil as well. And then some little details on the cat maybe. I think the cat's kind of like, get me out of here. I'm going with the black pencil on the tree. Bring some more branches in. I'm trying to make it clear that this is a tree. Bit of kind of shadow under the cat maybe. There needs to be some kind of buildings in the background. I find myself wanting to put like a kind of an iron fence in somewhere, but I'm not sure where. Here maybe. Maybe it'd be a nice bit of contrast here, but the cat's just in front of this kind of fence. It's got quite a bit of an empty space here. Maybe it's a bit kind of overgrown around here. Starting to kind of build up a bit of a kind of scene here. Maybe it's kind of people with umbrellas walking by. I think I'm going to go back to this one and maybe just put a little bit more tonal contrast in, just on people maybe. But there we go, two very different scenes. This one kind of warm and cosy around a campfire. This one we've got kind of a storm, wind and rain, but using the background colour has kind of really helped convey the mood and the atmosphere, and done a lot of the work for me in conveying that atmosphere. Another thing that can create atmosphere is things being kind of hazy and misty. So I love pan pastels for that. They are brilliant for that. If I just use this kind of powder puff, this is just from the makeup section at the chemist. I'm going to start with this kind of very, very light stone colour, and then layer in some other colours. So you can see that's lovely for creating kind of a very, very soft look. It could be glowing lights, it could be kind of mist, it could be like sunsetty clouds, it could be some kind of magical cloud that's going to create some kind of transformation. Who knows? But that's really lovely. You can kind of gradually build up the intensity and layer colours and create new colours. And like I said, there's going to be a dedicated pan pastel video kind of exploring that more. But love pan pastels for creating a kind of a lovely haze like that. And we can use watercolours as well. A bit of wet on wet will also create a nice haze, although I don't think it's quite got this kind of softness and magic glow that I think pan pastels have. But we could wet the paper first and then sort of lightly apply a little bit of colour and just play around with that. Thinking of other things that kind of feel very atmospheric, we've got mist, or maybe someone walking through kind of a very misty, hazy day, or snow, thinking about how we create that. And I was thinking we can kind of do that with watercolours just by varying the opacity. So so let's say it's kind of a tree here. And then maybe like a little bit of a kind of fence. And then we would need a kind of distinctly lighter layer here. We've got like another tree in the background. And maybe there's like a person walking and they're kind of bent over, kind of against the snow and the wind. And maybe there's just a hint of a horizon. Maybe it's snowy. Maybe there's sort of clouds and it's sort of... So by using these different intensities of the watercolour, so we've got darker and then getting lighter as we go further away, we get the sense that maybe it's foggy or they're in a sort of snowstorm. And I'm just wondering if I could do that with pan pastels, if I layered pan pastels over the top of a drawing. Would that work? I don't know, I'm gonna have a go. Person kind of head bound. And maybe I'll do like a tree in grey in the background. So I like to give them a bobble hat. Not great, but kind of a maybe a sense of a person walking, and then maybe if I put some of this on, it'll kind of feel like they're in the mist. I'm not sure. I don't know if this will actually work. A little bit. Put in a bit of blue as well. I'm going to put in a bit of snow. I think that might need refining. I think this has kind of worked better using the different tones of watercolour. Has worked a bit better. I'm not sure it's quite done what I wanted, but don't know. Kind of works. I think it would be a case of playing around with that as an effect to get it looking the way I want it to. And thinking about atmosphere, obviously we want to think about how that includes people, and in terms of things like body language and posture, that's a huge subject that I'm not going to delve into in this video, but I just wanted to look at how lighting can really add atmosphere to a person. So things like creating silhouettes, using kind of a glowing light, shadows, that kind of thing. So I've got a couple of quick examples. This is kind of inspired by taking my son to a Chris Tingle service before Christmas, where children are given candles in oranges and tiny children just put in charge of naked flames. It's very beautiful but slightly dangerous. My son did actually singe his fringe a little bit, but yeah, just inspired by that. So we're going to have the glow of the candle here, in the orange. And then just thinking about how I use lighting in this image to create the glow of the candle and then to also create atmosphere. So I'm just going to very quickly add some colour to my sun. So just very rough to give it a bit of colour. And then really thinking about using a contrast of light and dark to sort of add some drama, and thinking about where the light of the candle is going to be and what's going to be in shadow and what isn't. So painting his body kind of dark in the shadow, and then behind him sort of even darker, and kind of leaving the glow of the candle there. Seeing if this is dry enough yet. I might put the orange in. I'm going to go for neo colour so the orange stands out nicely. And let's do the flame of the candle, and then we're going to want sort of soft glowing yellow. And then the sort of glow of the yellow on the face, that light there. And some little rosy cheeks. Maybe that's slightly too rosy, but I'm just putting in some little details. Putting some shadow in on the orange. Maybe putting a little bit of shadow on the face. I don't want it to look evil, but yeah, just thinking about kind of creating that atmosphere. Putting some lines kind of around there. Maybe just softening these shadows a little bit. Maybe putting more kind of depth around the edge to create more of a sense of a glow. There we go, I think that feels quite glowing and atmospheric. And another way we can use lighting is with silhouettes. So thinking maybe there is a doorway, just painting this very quickly and roughly. Sort of a bit brown. Let's bring it back to grey a bit more. So we've got a doorway and light. Coming through, and maybe somebody's kind of in that doorway. Looking out, and then we've got their shadow kind of elongated as well, and kind of coming out as well. And that gives us quite a lot of drama and atmosphere. Must be a huge doorway or a small person, I'm not really sure. But again, we've got lighting and using a silhouette in this case. So the light with this one, the light is in front of the boy, he's lit up, and with this one, the lighting, we're seeing the person in shadow, and that creates a lot of atmosphere and drama. And I just wanted to go back and look at some of these now they're completely dry. So I just brushed the salt off this one. I love this effect. I think this would be great for a kind of snowy, stormy night. And this one, kind of adding the water on top, is really beautiful. And I think this has turned out quite well for lightning, using that candle. I like that. I haven't used a wax candle in a drawing for a long, long time, probably not since I was a child, so I quite like those effects. It's nice to see how they look when they're dry. And I've got these ones as well, which are all dry now. And now that they're dry, the thing with mixed media is you can go back and then add more detail. So maybe we've got this one, and this is quite an atmospheric sky, and then we think, okay, I want there to be some rooftops and chimneys, and it's these kind of high rooftops like this, and kind of thinking about silhouettes, and maybe there's a crescent moon, and maybe the next house here we go for more of a grey. I'm just putting the chimneys in and the rooftops, and maybe there's a tree. I feel like I'm just putting trees and everything, or maybe a little bit of black to add some detail on the windows. Yeah, this is very, very quick, but you can see how you could build a whole kind of picture out of this. A little bit of detail on the windows. You could start to build something sort of quite atmospheric. And with all of these, you know, you can then kind of work into them and play around with creating different textures and layering things. Find a clean brush. I'm running out of clean brushes at this point because I've been kind of doing a bit of everything. Maybe see how that looks. Yeah, just kind of really playing and experimenting. So yeah, so many different ways of creating drama and atmosphere and mood through using colour, through using lighting, through using weather and nighttime scenes, and lots of different ways of using mixed media to do that. And I think the best way to kind of build up a toolkit of these different effects is just to have a bit of a play, just to sit with your sketchbook or some loose paper and have a go and see what looks good. So hopefully you've been painting and drawing along with me, and you've found some great new techniques for creating atmosphere in your images. So if you were tasked with painting something that was a nighttime scene or a glowing light or a kind of a hazy mist or a storm, you would have loads of ideas for creating great mixed media effects that are going to help you convey that mood and atmosphere, and maybe add a little bit of drama, or just create a real atmosphere and mood. So yeah, I hope this video was helpful. I hope it was fun. I've had a lot of fun doing this. Like, I could just do little swatches like this all day long. So yeah, thank you for joining me.